I still remember the first time I heard Enami's laughter at a funeral. It was the burial of old Mama Efuru, a kind woman who wove the finest mats in the village of Umoro. As we stood around her grave, heads bowed in sorrow, a sudden burst of laughter shattered the silence. Everyone turned to see Enami sitting on a stone at the edge of the crowd, laughing as if he had just heard the funniest joke. People muttered angrily. Some spat on the ground. Children clutched their mothers' wrappers in fear. "What kind of man laughs at death?" they whispered. But Enami said nothing. He simply wiped his tears of laughter and walked away. This was not the first time, nor would it be the last. For years, Enami's strange habit unsettled the villagers. He never missed a funeral, and each time, without fail, he would laugh. The louder the mourning, the harder he laughed. Some said he was cursed, others claimed he was mad. A few believed he saw things that others could not, but no one dared ask him why. Then came the day Elder Obinna died. Obinna was the heart of Umoro. He settled disputes, fed the hungry, and spoke wisdom that even the gods would nod to. His death left the village in darkness. Men wailed openly, women beat their chests, and children whispered stories of his kindness. His funeral was the largest the village had seen in decades. That morning, as the drums of mourning sounded, a deep worry settled over the villagers. Would Enami come? And if he did, would he laugh? The ceremony began under the shade of the great Iroko tree. The elders sat at the front, their faces solemn. Obinna's family wept softly. As the priest began his prayers, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the crowd. Enami. A hush fell over the gathering. Every eye followed him as he took his usual place at the back, his arms folded. The air was heavy with grief. But then, just as the priest spoke of Obinna's generosity, a sound cut through the sorrow like a knife. Laughter. Loud, unrestrained, shameless laughter. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Obinna's son, Chike, sprang to his feet, his face twisted with rage. "You mock my father," he bellowed. "You insult his memory." Villagers shouted in agreement. Some moved forward, ready to throw Enami out, but Enami only shook his head, still smiling. "I do not mock him," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes held a depth that made even the angriest men pause. "I laugh because I see what you do not." A cold wind passed through the gathering. The villagers shivered. "What do you mean?" Chike demanded. Enami looked at him for a long time before speaking. "The dead do not rest when they have unfinished business." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some elders exchanged glances. That night, Chike could not sleep. His father had been healthy before he fell ill. His sudden death felt unnatural. Enami's words echoed in his mind. The dead do not rest when they have unfinished business. Determined to understand, Chike sought out Enami. The next morning, he found him sitting under the old baobab tree, staring at the sky. "What did you mean at the funeral?" Chike asked, his voice tense. Enami sighed. "Your father was poisoned." Chike's breath caught in his throat. "That's a lie," he said, though doubt was already creeping into his heart. "I do not lie," Enami said simply. "The dead whispered to me. Your father's spirit is restless." Chike clenched his fists. He wanted to dismiss Enami's words as nonsense, but deep down, something felt right. He began asking questions, speaking to those who had been close to his father in his final days. Slowly, pieces of the truth emerged. His father had complained about a bitter taste in his food. The village healer had warned him to be cautious, and then there was his uncle, Eze, who had argued with Obinna just days before his death. As Chike dug deeper, the whispers turned into shouts. The villagers began to talk. And finally, under the weight of suspicion, Eze confessed. He had poisoned his own brother over a land dispute, slipping a slow-acting poison into his food. The village was outraged. Eze was banished, his name cursed for generations to come. At Obinna's second funeral, there was no laughter from Enami. Instead, he sat quietly, his eyes closed, as if listening to something no one else could hear. When the ceremony ended, he stood, dusted off his clothes, and walked away. The villagers never saw him again. Some say he left because his work was done. Others believe he was never truly one of them, but a messenger sent by the ancestors to right a great wrong. All I know is this: after Enami left, no one ever called him mad again.